Hello, I welcome you for a session on employee stress with its definition and nature today. Stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. So it may be because of n number of reasons, but finally it is going to affect the physical condition of an individual or the emotional health of an individual. Because of any event or thought results in stress and in turn gives rise to frustration, anger, anxiety, helplessness, etc. in any individual, which is most of the times a psychological condition and makes an individual not to perform any activity as he was doing in the previous conditions. So stress definitely has more of a negative effect rather than the positive effect. So stress is needed in an individual's life, but stress has to be within a limit and within a controllable condition. If stress increases the tolerance level, then it results in negative events, and those negative events are most of the times resulting in the psychological conditions getting upset, and most of them will be suffering from anger, anxiety, helplessness, or resulting in frustration. And stress also results in depression, which is another psychological disturbance. It results in headache and it gives rise to disturbed sleep and it results in loss of appetite and there is an increase in the palpitation in the heart, etc. So these are all the symptoms or signs and symptoms of stress, which makes an individual feel that definitely an individual is struggling hard with the given activity. Let us see what employee stress is. If the stress is a condition which results in disturbance in physical and emotional condition, employee stress is a stress which is resulting in an individual because of the work-life situation or the work-life event. So, stress created at work is almost inevitable because definitely, yes, in order to reach the goal or in order to attain or accomplish the particular goal, stress is needed. But if the stress is more than the tolerance level of the individual at the workplace, then it is called as employee stress. Individual differences does exist in reacting to stress. So depending on the reaction shown by the individual or depending upon the intensity of the stress, there are different types of reactions to stress which are going to result in physical health getting upset, psychological getting upset, or emotional health also gets upset. So sometimes it may be a psychophysiological disorder or a psychophysiological disturbance also results. So most of the times it may be because of stress. An individual might undergo a chronic coronary heart disease, or it may be a headache, or usually what we call as a migraine headache, or it may be, for example, asthma. So all these things are all these such kind of disturbances are expressed by an individual knowingly or unknowingly, which arises because of stress. Work stress has been defined in different ways, and one of the definition is put in the form of stress that is generated due to conflicting demands in one's job is called as work stress. In other words, an individual will undergo or suffer the work stress because that particular stress is generated because of the conflicting demands in one's job. So when the demands are more, when the individual's capacity is less, or even though the individual has capacity, but sometimes time schedule may be very less, or sometimes an individual might be working under critical conditions. So on an average, when an individual cannot cope up with the demands of the job or the moment in a working condition, that results in work stress. And employee stress is also being defined in a different way by World Health Organization, which says that work-related stress is the response people may have when presented with work demands and pressures that are not matched to their knowledge and abilities and which challenge their ability to cope. So World Health Organization says that work-related stress is a response shown by an individual or an employee that may have shown up or shooted up when presented with work demands and pressures. So when the work demands and the work pressure is more than what an employee's ability, and when it is not compatible with the demands or an employee's talent or the skill or the particular effort is not compatible with the demands, And if the employee's knowledge and abilities are not met with the demands of the job, then definitely these are all going to be considered as a challenge, and these challenges are going to create stress because the individual cannot cope up with the demands of the job. Let us see what the nature of employee stress is. Task that is considered as a challenge to one person may produce anxiety in another person. So, as there are individual differences in talent, ability, skill, or capacity, or coping up with the particular situation, or resilience, or resistance, so there are n number of factors which will be contributing to the personality. And as the personality differs from one individual to the other, response shown to the stress also will be changing from one another. So for one person, it may the particular situation may not be a stressful condition at all, but in another person, it may create anxiety. And the third person, it may create depression. So in another person, it may create a kind of fear. So the response shown to the particular stress creating situation or the incident is always a challenge to an individual or an employee, whoever is facing the situation. And the adverse effects of stress includes disturbance in emotional health or emotional condition, thinking process or the cognitive activities, behavior on the whole, and physical condition of the individual. So, stress may result in psychoneurological disturbances, or it may result in psychosomatization of the individual's health, and definitely it has a negative effect on the health of an individual, whether it is physical, physiological, psychological, or emotional or cognitive health. People easily get provoked to anger and cannot relax. Whenever an employee is under work stress, they get provoked to any simple communication or any simple dialogue or any simple conversation which goes on in the situation. And if this stress tolerance is very low, an individual or that particular employee cannot relax also. And the stress over a prolonged time also leads to a degenerative diseases of the heart, kidney, blood vessels, etc. So when a stress is prolonged over a long period, it has a direct effect on the health of the heart, resulting in coronary heart disease, heart attacks, etc. Kidney functioning of the kidney becomes a failure and results in the blood vessels, and sometimes it also results in paralysis. So directly it affects the physical health of the individual. What exactly the negative symptoms of stress? The negative symptoms of stress includes physiological symptom, psychological symptom, behavioral symptom, and so on. So when we speak about physiological symptom, the negative effect, which is a direct impact of stress on the individual's health, includes development of ulcers, digestive problems, sleep disturbance, high blood pressure, coronary heart disease, or it may be asthma, migraine headache, etc. So an individual definitely undergoes a disturbance in the physiological system, and this particular physiological system symptoms, whenever an individual is undergoing, results in different types of disorders or different types of health issues starts expressed by the individual when the negative symptoms of stress is more and when it is more on the physiological condition. The psychological symptoms of negative stress includes, or the negative symptoms of stress includes the disturbance in the psychological health of an individual or an employee. And these psychological symptoms includes emotional instability, moods, ups and downs will be there, worry, unnecessary worry or anxiety increases, moodiness, it may be sometimes resulting in bipolar disorders, nervousness, tension, chronic worry, or it may be a situation where worries are more and the individual cannot cope up with it. It might result in depression, and finally it results in burnout. And when the depression is too much and the individual cannot cope up, and it is a sign of committing suicide also. That is why the stress should be within the moderate level, which should be in a position to be tolerated or handled by the employee or any other individual. So because we are talking about employee stress here, we are giving importance to the conditions where an employee is working. So the depression is one serious sign of life threat to an individual or an employee. What are the behavioral symptoms of stresses? excessive smoking. So most of the unwanted or ill health practices will be started by an individual, like excessive smoking, alcoholism, drug addiction, expressing too much of aggression, or expressing absenteeism. It may also include tardiness. Sometimes an individual may not follow the safety measures, and it results in safety problems. And sometimes, and because an individual is already getting upset with the condition and is already disturbed by the health condition, definitely his behavioral symptom also includes performance problems. Means there will be a decrement in the output of an individual or an employee, both in the qualitative terms and in the quantitative terms. So we can overall say that employee stress is a stress which is going to result in an employee on the work spot, and it includes different definitions and more given by the World Health Organization, which says that definitely yes, health is upset because it is the individuals or the employees' health condition gets worse, wherein the resultant is the compatibility is not matching with the demands of the job and the employees' talents. So there are negative symptoms of stress: physical, physiological, behavioral, and cognitive. Thank you for attending this session.